Welcome back to Takeout. A week ago, Eric Swalwell was a leading contender to be governor of California. Then he suspended that campaign and then resigned from Congress. And that upended an already chaotic battle to be governor of California, the next one. Earlier today, I spoke with the candidate and current San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan. Here's part of that conversation. Here's all of that conversation, as a matter of fact, not part of it, all of it. Today is April 17th. Ordinarily, I wouldn't start an interview that way, but according to an article published in the New York Times earlier this month, your campaign has concocted, and I quote, a rather unusual campaign finance strategy. The pitch? Help us raise $35 million by April 17th, and you'll get your money back if we fall short. Well, today's the day. Did you fall short or not?
Well, Major, I think you're referring to outside efforts out there that I'm not involved in. But what's important in this race is that we talk about how we're going to make government work for the people of California. For too long, we've asked people to pay more in taxes without delivering meaningful progress on the things that matter: the quality of our schools, the affordability of housing, public safety issues. And I jumped into this race because, as mayor of the third largest city in the state, I know what it takes to deliver real results in people's lives. So I'm not looking at the fundraising numbers. Nobody can keep up with the billionaire in the race that's already spent over $100 million, but we're making good progress on every front.
That billionaire you just referenced to is Tom Steyer. What's wrong with him as a candidate for governor of California?
Well, look, this is a guy who made his fortune in funding private prisons and ICE detention centers, oil, gas, and coal companies, and now is telling everybody he absolutely doesn't support any of those things and he'll take them all on. And look, what we need right now is not someone with baggage and more of the same solutions. Beyond his history, it's a guy who thinks the answer is to make government bigger at a time when Sacramento has increased spending by 75% in just the last 6 years. I'm focused on outcomes. We don't need to make government bigger in California at this point. We need to make it better. I've helped make San Jose the safest big city in the country, reduced homelessness faster than any other city in the state, got thousands of new homes under construction without raising taxes. And so I think it's a moment that calls for accountability. We've got a lot of waste and inefficiency in government, a lack of focus, and we need a different kind of leader in government at this moment to really deliver for people, to show that California's values work in practice, not just rhetorically.
Tom Steyer has also pledged to prosecute ICE agents and prosecute leadership within the Department of Homeland Security, in addition to abolishing ICE. Do you support any of those ideas?
Look, he's promising to abolish ICE, which he can't do, implement single-payer health care, which he can't do. This is just damage control for the fact that he funded ICE detention centers not long ago. The guy made $90 million in private prisons. And so, look, we need real answers here. On immigration, both parties have failed them. And real answers are not these oversimplified things that you're hearing from Tom Steyer on the one end or the MAGA candidates on the other end. Democrats need to be able to acknowledge that we should have a secure border. And if you're committing serious violent crime in our country and you're not here legally, deportation is a very reasonable consequence. On the other hand, we've got millions of people in California who have been here for years, working, contributing, they're raising children who are U.S. citizens. We need a pathway to a legal status. I mean, we need a compromise that actually moves us forward and allows us to get back to focusing on what we do when we're at our best in government, which is expand opportunity by improving schools, investing in infrastructure, the things that really matter in people's lives, and the kinds of things I've delivered on as mayor of the third largest city in California.
Matt, there's an interesting conversation going on in California. About $180 billion, by some estimates, was either poorly managed and lost in California or flat out stolen. Let me repeat that number. $180 billion. A, do you think it's that large? B, do you think it was stolen or poorly managed? And C, if you're governor, what would that mean to you and what would you do about it?
Well, Major, I think it is true that we have a tremendous amount of waste, inefficiency, and even outright fraud in government spending. These systems have gotten so big and
In
bloated.
California, under Democratic management.
In California, but in other states as well, and in the federal government, our government, we have allowed it to get so big and bureaucratic, and reflexively always come back to people and ask for more revenue rather than forcing ourselves to get better, that there's a tremendous amount of waste, certainly on the tens of billions, not maybe larger. To your point, we know there was 32 billion in unemployment claims that were fraudulent. But here's how I've led in San Jose. And let me even back up from that. I grew up in a working class family in a small farming town on the Central Coast called Watsonville. We were paycheck to paycheck. I grew up in a household where we watched every dollar carefully because it was a direct trade-off between food, paying the mortgage, putting gas in the car. Money was tight. And that's why in San Jose, I've held us accountable for delivering dramatically better outcomes on crime, homelessness, home building without raising taxes. We have balanced our budget, not raised taxes, and made huge strides in improving our city. That's the kind of leadership we need. It's called accountability, a focus on outcomes, not just process.
Last question. You've been quoted saying Democrats became consumed with virtue signaling and catering to highly organized interests and enamored of jargon and so-called systems thinking. What do you mean?
Well, what I mean is that we've got an establishment within the party that's very insular and it is not really as accountable as it needs to be for the basic things that government's here to do. At the end of the day, our job is to make people safer, build and maintain infrastructure they rely upon, provide high quality public education, remove barriers to economic opportunity, including for small business owners, the basic things that really matter. And we've gotten off track with all of this virtue signaling. And it just, the best resistance, to use a word that we've been talking a lot about in California, the best resistance is delivering results, the real things that matter in people's lives. That's what I've been doing as a mayor. And that's what I want from our state government, which is why I'm running to be our next governor.
Matt Mahan, Democratic candidate for governor of California. Appreciate the time, sir. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you, Major.